Yeah, here we go. Lexington, North Carolina was a small manufacturing town when I was growing up, so I was surrounded by the people who owned and worked in the cotton mills and the furniture factories located in that town. My first job in the furniture manufacturing was with a furniture manufacturer in the town, but after 5 years I was off to become a road salesman calling on furniture manufacturers, so that is where my life on the Sawdust Trail began. The Sawdust Trail is a road on which I've been traveling for the last 27 years. It's a road that winds through the small towns of the southeastern United States, connecting the factories that created the furniture for the nation. As you see by this map, the trail extended throughout almost all the southeast. I would begin my journey in my hometown of Lexington, where I would visit Burlington Furniture and walk across the railroad tracks to where what was Dixie Furniture, which eventually became Lexington Home Brands, and all the furniture factories in this town have now been shut down. Some of those in management are still in the business, but those who worked in the factory have moved on. The trail would then begin to lead me westward on I-40 to the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. It would lead me to the factories in towns like Hickory, Lenore, Morganton, North Wilkesboro, which was home to mountain folks who lived close to the timber and knew about hard work. This area was full of factories and people who knew about making beautiful furniture, designers, carvers, lumber buyers. Many of the factories located in these foothills bore the names of the families that started the companies, families like Broyhill, Bernhardt, Kincaid. There are others like Henderdon, Drexel, Hickory Chair, Hickory Manufacturing, and the lower end of the furniture companies, also like Progressive Impact and Bassett. The trail would then cross over to the Blue Ridge to Tennessee to the factories in Morristown and Johnson City. Then it turned back northeast up the interstate back to Virginia to Pulaski, which is near the beautiful Shenandoah Valley. Then the trail turns south to Galax, where the banjos, guitars, and fiddles came together to lift the hearts of those who toil in the factories. I spent a lot of time in Galax, where I spent much of my time over the years trying to sell products to Vaughan, Bassett, and Webb Furniture. One of the constants in my life has been to drive up Highway 89 towards Galax in April and realizing another spring had arrived. She loved the sound of the banjo ring and the sound of the bluegrass tune, and if I recall, she knew them all beneath the mountain moon. The trail then made a sharp turn eastward to Bassett, Stanleytown, and Martinsville, where the stories of the great furniture families flow like molasses from the mouths of those who lived and worked there. If I was ever going to create a TV series based on the towns along the Sawdust Trail, I think it would call it Martinsville because of all the intermarriage between the furniture families. I'm sure there's many stories of intrigue. The trail continues up across North Carolina to sandy soil of South Carolina, where the factories in Nichols and Sumter, and now it's down to Georgia and Flowery Branch, where you stop to buy peaches in the summertime. Then it's on the Gulf Coast to visit the plants in northern Florida, and you arrive in Alabama just in time to see the folks at Bay Minette before they leave for the day. Next morning it's southern Mississippi to visit the people in Orleans Furniture in Columbia, Mississippi. From Columbia, you can hear the sirens calling you to come on down to New Orleans. "Oh, Dave, come on down here and party, man. We'll feed some gumbo, play you some jazz, buy you a cup of coffee and a beignet at Cafe Du Monde. You'll have a good time, I guarantee." Turning north, you make one stop in Jackson, then it's on to Memphis, and you arrive in Memphis, and you head for the old Peabody Hotel for a drink and across the street for a plate of dried ribs at the Rendezvous Cafe, afterwards to stroll down Bill Street. The next morning, you go to an appointment outside of Memphis to Collierville, and then it's heading back east towards home. You leave Memphis, heading back to Mississippi, and you see the sign Holly Springs reminds you of meeting the world's largest Elvis fan there. You make a short stop in Tupelo, where Elvis still lives, and a young market like a premature baby still struggles to survive. In northern Alabama, you visit two factories, you shake hands, tell stories, and you're off again. By this time, you hear the voice calling you home. Now it's time for a long journey back home. At 3 in the morning, you stop at a Waffle House. You enter the place, nod to the truck drivers, order your coffee, pay a bill, and you're off again. You have a lot of time to yourself when traveling these roads, a lot of time to think, a lot of time to talk to yourself, and a lot of time of eating alone. After 10 hours on the road, you arrive home early in the morning. You crawl out of your car, crawl into bed for a few hours. The next day, you open the last week's mail and check the obituaries in last week's paper to see if you're in them. With one day's rest, you go down the road to quick visit to Thomasville Furniture, one of the nation's most famous furniture factories. As I mentioned, my journey started many years ago in a little southern town, factory town, in the world that no longer exists. It's a world where at 6 a.m. in the morning, the streets were full of cars loaded with people heading to work in those cotton mills and furniture factories, which was the lifeblood of this community. This day I have returned to walk the streets and drive by the boarded factories and wonder about the people who once worked there. After traveling and working with designers and product development people, you hope that you've been successful in convincing these folks to buy some of your product. And hopefully the project on which you worked will be introduced at the largest home furnishings market in the world, which is located in High Point, North Carolina. The reality of the road is this: you live by the sale, you die by the sale. I included this photo to show a few sample examples of the products which I've sold over the years. I've sold domestic chairs, imported chairs, mirrors and glass, decorative glass, carvings, decorative hardware, marble, granite, decals, plastics, and other things I've long ago forgotten. Each product has its own unique characteristics, and it's been an interesting journey. The following are the words from a song I wrote, These Hands, which is in a movie. If you get a chance to walk through those old boarded up factories today, and if you listen real hard, you can hear the voices of those men and women who once worked there, and they're saying, these hands, look at these hands, so young and so strong, made for work of a man. I created a little company called the Sawdust Marketing Company. I met these guys in the picture on the road one night somewhere in a dream. I liked them so much, I put them in the company logo. The tree above their limb holds my personal credo, which is the answers in the journey. There's a story behind the credo, but that story will have to wait for another time. So now you've met old Dave Williams, and you've heard some of the stories about traveling down the Sawdust Trail. Many of the factories are gone now, and the trail is dying. But it was an important part of the lives of those of us who traveled it. And in some strange way, all of us who traveled this trail are somehow connected. We are connected because of the world and the times in which we lived. And that is the end of the story.